Would you like some wine, baby?
No, thank you.
You mind, you're a grown man. Now go on and take that whooping. When you say cause problems, you mean between me and him or me and the women?
No one wanted to work with Kym Whitley after this moment. A scandal so shocking it slammed every door in Hollywood shut. Kym Whitley had it all. The career, the charisma, the respect.
There is no best mother. You just have to be vulnerable enough to admit when you're wrong.
Is that what you do with Jacob?
But one decision, one hidden connection to an explosive FBI investigation flipped her world overnight. She wasn't just blacklisted, she was isolated, betrayed, and labeled a liability. And it all spiraled from a disturbing situation involving R. Kelly and a missing tape.
I got a tape with a young lady that was with R. Kelly at the time. She was of age, but she had presented herself as a virgin to her husband. So I think that was like the big problem.
Let's uncover how Kym Whitley went from Hollywood's rising light to the woman everyone in the industry ran from. Before any scandals, courtroom drama, or betrayals, Kym Whitley was all about energy and laughter. She grew up in Shaker Heights, Ohio, a place far from the flashing lights of Hollywood. But she always knew deep down that she was meant for something bigger. Kym wasn't the kind of person who blended into the background. Even as a kid, she had a natural gift for making people laugh and feel good. She carried that energy into adulthood, where she used her wit, big smile, and bold personality to kickstart her career. It wasn't easy getting her foot in the door. She didn't have a famous family name or a line of connections. Kym had to hustle, working small jobs, going to auditions, and constantly proving herself. She learned early that Hollywood could be cold and brutal, but she refused to give up. Her humor made her stand out, and little by little, people started to notice her. By the late 90s and early 2000s, Kym Whitley was becoming a face you couldn't miss. Even if you didn't know her name yet, you knew her smile, her laugh, and the way she could light up a scene without even trying. She was the kind of actress who could pop up for just a few minutes in a show or movie, and you'd still be thinking about her after the credits rolled. One of her biggest early moments came when she landed a role on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Pocket.
You had marijuana in your pocket.
I bought it from my father for his glaucoma.
Even though the show had its share of wild, unpredictable moments, Kym fit right in. Her quick timing, her way of delivering a line like she had just thought of it, it made her unforgettable. She wasn't acting like a character. She was acting like a real person you knew. Around the same time, she also started picking up movie roles. In Next Friday, standing alongside Ice Cube and other big names, Kym proved she could hold her own. She wasn't just there for background laughs. She made sure you noticed her. Whether she was throwing out a joke or just giving a look, she made an impact.
Would you like some wine, baby?
No, thank you.
Casting directors took note. They loved that Kym felt familiar, like someone from your own family, a funny cousin, a wild friend, that auntie who always had you cracking up at family barbecues. She wasn't trying too hard. She was just being herself, and people loved it. Soon, people in the industry started calling her the next Jackie Harry. It wasn't just the resemblance, it was the energy, the sass, the warmth, the ability to pull you in and make you laugh without even breaking a sweat. It really seemed like Kym's big moment was right around the corner. Then, everything changed. In the early 2000s, Kym Whitley found herself in a situation she never could have seen coming. She wasn't looking for trouble, she wasn't chasing headlines, but trouble found her anyway. It all started by accident. Kym Whitley wasn't out digging for dirt, and she definitely wasn't chasing gossip. Somehow, though, she ended up seeing a tape that showed R. Kelly doing something really disturbing. It wasn't the kind of thing you could just forget about. Once she knew what she had seen, she couldn't pretend it didn't exist. It was heavy. It weighed on her. Kym didn't think about how it could affect her career or what kind of trouble it could cause. Her first thought was about someone else, the wife of a gospel singer she knew personally. Kym couldn't shake the feeling that this woman deserved to know what was out there, especially since it could affect her life in a big way. Kym felt it would be wrong to stay silent, but she didn't go to the tabloids. She didn't try to blow the whole thing up for attention. She didn't post about it or even hint about it in public. Instead, she took the quiet route. She tried to pass the information along privately, hoping it could stay between them. It wasn't meant to embarrass anyone or make headlines. It was just a private warning, woman to woman. In Kym's mind, it was a simple act of loyalty, a heads up, a way of quietly saying, "You need to know this before someone else uses it to hurt you." She wasn't thinking about money, fame, or revenge. She thought she was helping.
So I thought I was doing her a favor by letting her know I had this so-called tape. I don't know what you want to do about it.
But things didn't go the way she expected. Instead of receiving any kind of thanks or understanding, Kym's good intentions were twisted into something ugly. The woman she had tried to quietly warn didn't respond directly. Instead, her publicist got involved, and that changed everything. Whether out of fear, misunderstanding, or just a knee-jerk reaction to protect their client's image, the publicist went to the FBI. They reported Kym, accusing her of trying to extort the couple.
Oh, there was another publicist lady. She told the girl that, she was like, she probably is trying to extort money and blah, 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 whatever the case is, without telling all my business and what happened, because that was a very hurtful time in my life.
It didn't matter that Kym had never asked for anything. She hadn't demanded money. She hadn't threatened to expose the tape. But in the world of high-profile public figures, perception is everything. Once the word extortion entered the conversation, it didn't matter what Kym's true intentions had been. The situation spiraled out of her control almost immediately. The FBI didn't waste any time. As soon as the accusation was made, they launched a full investigation. One moment, Kym was going about her career, lining up roles, attending meetings, auditioning, and working the way she always had. The next, she was being treated like a potential criminal. Agents started shadowing her. They tracked her movements, keeping an eye on where she went and who she spoke to. If she picked up her phone to call a friend, she had to wonder if someone else was quietly listening in. When she drove to a meeting or even ran a simple errand, she found herself constantly checking her mirrors, wondering if she was being followed. The paranoia wasn't in her head. It was real. And it only got worse when the interview started. Being questioned by the FBI wasn't like any kind of conversation she had ever had before. These weren't casting directors looking for a good performance. These were agents looking for inconsistencies, slip-ups, anything they could use. The room felt cold. The questions felt endless. And no matter how careful she was with her words, it always seemed like they had already decided she was guilty of something. Then came the grand jury. Kym had to walk into a courtroom, raise her hand, swear to tell the truth, and sit under bright lights while strangers judged her. There were no cameras, no reporters in the room, but the tension was unbearable. She wasn't a star here. She wasn't even Kym Whitley the comedian. She was simply another person under federal investigation, trying to explain herself to a group of people who barely knew her and probably had already heard a twisted version of the story. Every day felt heavier than the last. The stress seeped into everything: her work, her friendships, even her health. The worst part was knowing how quickly things had turned. She had started out trying to help someone she cared about. She wasn't looking for trouble, but now trouble had found her in a way she never could have imagined. As the investigation dragged on, word started to leak out. Hollywood has always been a small town when it comes to gossip. People heard that Kym Whitley was under FBI investigation. They didn't hear why. They didn't hear that it was all a misunderstanding. They just heard FBI and Kym Whitley in the same sentence. In Hollywood, perception is everything. You don't have to be guilty. You don't even have to be charged. Just being connected to something messy can be enough to poison your name. That's exactly what happened to Kym. The FBI investigation didn't just embarrass Kym, it wrecked some of the biggest opportunities she had worked for. She had been building a name for herself, finally getting into rooms where real decisions were being made. One of the biggest was Mad TV.
I got Stuart! Stuart, honey, it's Mama! Come on, let's go!
She wasn't just auditioning. She had actual meetings set up about joining the cast. People were talking about what characters she could play, how she would fit in. For a black woman in comedy back then, getting on a show like Mad TV was a massive deal. But as soon as the FBI investigation leaked out, the tone shifted. One producer who had been pushing to bring her on suddenly got too busy to meet. Meetings that had been easy to set up now needed to be rescheduled, and then rescheduled again. Kym started noticing the shift right away. At first, it was little things, a callback that never happened, a follow-up meeting that got canceled with no explanation. Before she knew it, the whole opportunity was gone. Nobody told her why, but she didn't need to be a genius to figure it out. She later admitted in interviews that it was clear the stink of the FBI case had scared everyone off. Even though she hadn't been charged with a crime, the idea that she might be tied up in something messy was enough to kill the deal. In Hollywood, perception can be more dangerous than facts. It wasn't just Mad TV either. Around that time, Kym had been circling a couple of big sitcom projects. She had auditioned for a supporting role on a pilot that later got picked up by a major network. The casting director had loved her first audition. She was supposed to come back for a chemistry read with the show's lead actor, but suddenly she was no longer being considered. No phone call, just a vague email from her agent saying they're going in another direction. Even in her personal circle, things got weird. Some friends in the industry stopped inviting her to industry parties. One person she had known for years told her flat out that people were gossiping. They didn't know if she was under surveillance. They didn't want their names dragged into anything by accident. It sounds paranoid, but in Hollywood, guilt by association is very real. Kym found herself in a terrible position. She couldn't explain herself because she hadn't been charged. She couldn't prove her innocence because there was nothing to defend legally. She was just that actress now, the one tied up in some FBI extortion mess involving R. Kelly. Even though her only crime had been trying to warn someone, the industry looked at her like she was radioactive. Even before the FBI scandal nearly wrecked her career, Kym Whitley had already faced a series of silent battles in Hollywood. They didn't make headlines, but behind the scenes, they stacked up, one after another, and made her path harder than it had to be. One of her first painful experiences happened when she tried out for Soul Train. Kym, like many young dancers at the time, saw Soul Train as a ticket into the entertainment world. It wasn't just a dance show, it was a stepping stone. Dancers on Soul Train often landed music video gigs, acting roles, or national tours. So when Kym made it through the early audition rounds, it felt like a real breakthrough. But as she prepared to step onto the famous stage, someone from the production team pulled her aside. Word had spread backstage that Kym looked too much like Jackie Harry, the TV star who had become famous for playing Sandra Clark on 227. Normally, resembling a star would be seen as a good thing, but not this time. Jackie's sister, who had connections to the production, reportedly pushed for Kym's removal, fearing it would distract from the other dancers or create unnecessary confusion around her sister's image. There was no warning, no polite conversation. Kym was quietly told she couldn't dance that day. Security escorted her out before she could even process what was happening. She ended up sitting alone in her car, crying, realizing her shot was over before it even started. The pattern didn't stop there. When 227 needed a stand-in for Jackie during rehearsals, Kym's name was floated again. She was the obvious pick because of her similar look. But once again, Jackie's team allegedly blocked it. The concern wasn't about Kym's ability to do the job, It was simply that her presence might blur the spotlight. No audition, no real consideration, just doors quietly closed. These early experiences taught Kym a hard truth about Hollywood. Talent didn't always matter. Politics, personal biases, and image control sometimes mattered more. And when whispers started spreading that Kym brought baggage, not because of anything she said or did, but because of who she reminded people of, she found herself fighting invisible enemies. Later, when she began booking real roles, new problems surfaced. One of the most painful examples involved Next Friday, the sequel to Ice Cube's hit movie Friday. Kym was cast as Suga, the funny, flirty neighbor who had great chemistry with Mike Epps' character.
You even shooting no baby pictures.
It was a small part, but it stood out, and many thought she'd naturally be invited back for Friday After Next. But when the third movie went into production, Kym wasn't called. She didn't even know they were filming until the project was well underway. By that point, she had already committed to another film, Deliver Us from Eva, starring Gabrielle Union and LL Cool J.
Excuse me, is there like some bone-in or salad tossing or something in the story? I'm trying to get that.
When Ice Cube's team finally reached out, it wasn't to offer a role. It was to deliver an ultimatum. They told her she had to walk away from Deliver Us from Eva immediately if she wanted to be in Friday After Next. It wasn't a flexible offer. No schedule adjustments, no negotiation. Kym was faced with an impossible choice. If she dropped Deliver Us from Eva, she would breach her contract and burn bridges with a major studio, something few black actresses at her level could afford to do. Keeping her word meant missing out on the Friday franchise, which was beloved in the black community and had serious cultural pull. Ultimately, Kym honored her commitment to Deliver Us from Eva. She refused to break a signed contract just to chase another opportunity. But her decision came with a heavy price. Ice Cube reportedly took the move personally. He didn't see it as a business decision. He saw it as disloyalty. After that, communication between them froze. Kym was effectively blackballed from the Friday world, and from other projects Cube was involved in. To make matters worse, this fallout wasn't just about that one franchise. Ice Cube was growing in influence at the time, not just as an actor, but as a writer, producer, and major player in Black Hollywood. Losing his support closed doors that Kym hadn't even knocked on yet. It also left her in a strange position. To many fans, it looked like she had simply disappeared from the Friday world without explanation. Some assumed she was difficult to work with or had been left behind. The truth, that she made a professional, principled choice, rarely got discussed. Each of these moments, the Soul Train snub, the 227 rejection, the Friday After Next fallout, didn't just hurt Kym emotionally. They damaged her reputation in ways that were hard to fix. In an industry where success often depends on personal relationships and unspoken loyalty tests, Kym found herself labeled as someone who was good but complicated. By the time bigger controversies hit, she was already climbing uphill, alone. Kym Whitley had already been through a lot when she suffered one of her deepest personal losses in 2006. Gerald Levert, the famous R&B singer known for his soulful voice and big heart.
The reason Gerald Levert and I never got married is because he died. He died, and that's what he did. He left me here to fend for myself and deal with this life alone.
Was more than just a friend to her. He was someone she leaned on during hard times. He believed in her talent when other people overlooked her, and he gave her emotional support when Hollywood felt cold. Gerald's sudden death from an accidental overdose hit Kym like a punch to the chest. One day, they were laughing on the phone, planning future projects and cracking jokes about life. The next, she was getting the news that he was gone. Just like that. She didn't just lose a friend, she lost a piece of her foundation. At that time, Kym didn't have a huge team behind her. She wasn't a star with a million handlers and managers fighting for her. She depended on real relationships to stay grounded. Gerald was one of the few people who checked in regularly, offering encouragement without expecting anything back. His death left a huge, painful hole, and she grieved both publicly and privately. On talk shows, you could see the sadness written all over her face when she spoke about him. It wasn't for the cameras, it was real. Then came another blow. Her friendship with Monique, another woman she had trusted and called a sister, quietly fell apart. For years they had shared stages, appearances, and private laughs. But after Monique's career became more complicated, especially during her public battles with Hollywood after Precious, the friendship with Kym faded into silence. Even after everything that happened, the FBI investigation, the whispers in Hollywood, the lost opportunities, Kym Whitley never completely disappeared. She didn't quit. Instead, she found new ways to stay in the game. She leaned into voiceover work, using her funny, recognizable voice to bring characters to life in cartoons and commercials. She also found success in reality TV, where people could see the real her. Funny, warm, and full of life. Little by little, the public started to remember what made them love her in the first place. It wasn't just her jokes, it was her heart. It was the way she could make you laugh and feel something real at the same time. It was her honesty, the way she never tried to be anyone but herself. Today, she remains a survivor of Hollywood's brutal machine. Kym Whitley may have been dragged through the mud, but she never let it destroy her spirit. She's proof that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply endure. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.